Girls are meant to be these sweet, kind, nurturing creatures, delicate creatures, but we still get mad. Hi, thank you for clicking on the video, and I hope everyone is doing really well. So today I am doing another book review video. Like my previous book review video, it's not necessarily a summarizing review, it's more of reviewing it through the lens of my experience and what resonated with me from the book. So the book is entitled Odd Girl Out: The Hidden Culture of Aggression in Girls by Rachel Simmons. So this book explores the interactions of girls between certain ages, adolescence, the preteen, teenage years, and the impact of bullying in the lives of girls, and how society dictates how girls interact and how they are meant to express their aggression, and their aggression becomes bullying. The author interviewed countless girls throughout the United States, different schools, different ages, different class systems, different levels of affluence and or poverty. From my perspective, hearing the different girls' accounts, no matter what race you are, no matter what age you are, no matter how intelligent you are, no matter what city or area you are going to school in, girls are kind of the same all over. So like I said, this video is more of talking about what from the book resonated with me based on my own experience. This book was recommended to me because I was severely bullied during those formative preteen, teenage years. It affected my life to this day. Basically, this video is just going to be my thoughts in bullet point form. Probably wondering also, what does this have to do with my whole channel, which is eating disorder recovery? Well, if you didn't know, bullying does lead to disordered behavior, and that means eating disorders, and that is covered in the book. The book starts out talking about the expectation of girls are meant to be these sweet, kind, nurturing creatures, delicate creatures, but we still get mad. There is this unspoken pressure to always just be the sweet, nice girl. But then we get mad, and what are we supposed to do with that anger? We become these petty, devious, all of the fighting, the bullying, the aggression. It has to be subtle. It has to be sneaky. Girls are aggressive psychologically. It's all psychological warfare when it comes down to facing your enemies or your frenemies in those middle school, high school age group. You hear the stereotype, and this book proves from firsthand accounts from these girls that the stereotype unfortunately is true, how girls are just psychologically manipulative. Not that we have to be, but that's how we are raised and taught to express our anger and aggression. There isn't an emphasis on healthy expression of aggression. The pattern that I noticed and is mentioned a lot is this need that we as girls and women, we need people around us. We feel value, we feel strong in a group. And in order to keep people around, a sense of needing to control who we keep around us arises. And that is where a lot of the bullies in this book thrive, because they get to control people and they feel empowered from this. They probably feel value in this. They can get people to fight for their attention, fight each other, and they just have to sit back and wait for the winner to come out on top, the strongest person, and then the bully will keep that person around. But it's almost like they will pin people against each other for their own need of that sense of control or that need of sense of value within themselves. And that's really sad, but I can also speak from personal experience that this is something that happened. I felt for a long time that while I was bullied relentlessly in other ways, I felt at one point in my life that I was becoming a bully because I was doing and saying rather manipulative and hurtful things against people who I thought were my friends. But looking back, there was a ringleader who subtly pressured me. It was very subtle, and now I'm looking back and I'm like, wow, went over my head as a 12, 13-year-old. But for some reason, I wanted her friendship and I was afraid to lose it, even though at the time I knew she was a terrible friend. But for some reason, I needed her. Probably because prior to that, I lost all of my friends. My very best friends basically told me I wasn't good enough to be their friend anymore, so I was left with no one. So when someone did show me attention, did show me like that I was valuable and that they wanted to be friends with me, I held on to that. This person would basically come to me and tell me so-and-so, who was in our friend group, was talking about me behind my back, and what dirt did I have on her that I could tell this person, and then that person would spread it around, and then the other person who I said I aired out her dirty laundry would come to me and be like, why did you do this? And I'd be like, well, you said this, this, and this. And she's like, no, I didn't. I told so-and-so. She's saying that I'm telling everybody when it's her. So yes, that was still bullying behavior and awful behavior on my account, and I am ashamed of that behavior. There is a higher up bully controlling us. Like, we're just the little pawns. So this is covered in the book about how the bully, the main bully, will kind of turn their friends and victims into bullies themselves. And it's a whole twisted, messed up cycle. Luckily, I pulled away from that person shortly after that major incident with this other friend, and the two of us were like, you and I should just be friends, and that ringleader, she doesn't need to be the leader anymore. Like, let's find better friends. So let's reverse back to me losing all my friends because they basically told me I wasn't good enough. Actually, their direct quote was, "You're too fat to be our friend." So that may have affected me, and I might still carry that with me to this day. But, that's up in the air. I could be wrong. A lot of the girls in the book, and I can relate to this, the critical voices of their friends / bullies at that formative age time in their life, those critical outside voices slowly become your critical inside voice. Those messages and those things that those people say to you echo in your head, and you carry it with you, if you do not address it, into your adulthood, and then suddenly find yourself putting an extreme value on your physical appearance and thinking, if I get fat, no one will like me. Why? Because I was told no one likes you because you're fat when you're like 11 and 12, and then people don't want to hang out with you, and people don't want to play with you, and people don't want to invite you to parties. And these were people that I was friends with from the age of 5. And so in my mind, we're going to be friends forever, but you're only going to be friends until you're fat. Like, that's basically the message that was sent to me, and that becomes my own inner critic. So side note, not relevant to girls bullying other girls, but a lot of also my bullies that had critical things to say about my body were also adults, which we can get into the psychological downfall and negative side effects of that at a later date. I have in other videos, but we could talk about it at another time. But this video is about little girls telling other little girls, you're a piece of shit and I don't want to hang out with you because you don't eat 2 grapes every day. Another thing that was said to me. I was also told once that I eat popcorn like a pig. Okay, anyway, so this outside negativity turns into self-deprecation, which leads to disordered behaviors, and in some cases, eating disorders, which is also covered in the book, not in as much depth as I expected. I thought there would be more girls that she interviewed talking about that. There were only a couple, but I'm glad that it was covered because it's a huge issue. Like that, those are the years that statistics show that between those ages are when girls tend to have a higher chance of developing an eating disorder. I wonder why. Especially when, you're also going through puberty at that time. So your body's changing. And I can't speak for other schools. I can speak for my school. There wasn't a big emphasis on explaining what's happening to you during puberty. So we were left to our own devices, which can lead to misunderstanding of what's happening. And then other girls develop at a faster rate than maybe another girl, and that can lead to not very nice things being said to each other. This is all bullet points that just I thought of after finishing the book, so they're kind of all over the place and jumbled, so I apologize for the lack of organization. So we're going to go back to basically pining for the attention and affection of the bully. Now, I think in most cases, girls know, and this was the case for me, know that they're being bullied into being friends with, or fighting to be friends with this person, but we can't not do it because we don't want to be alone. We want people, we want friends. This constant love bombing followed by bullying, followed by love bombing, it diminishes your self-esteem drastically to the point that it leads to not only eating disorders in some cases, but another very destructive disordered behavior, and that is staying in abusive relationships. Some girls' first abusive relationships are with their friends, and because they see them as friends, well, I can't leave them, we're friends. Then that leads to the pattern and the innate habit of staying with your abuser. And a lot of girls in this book, as they grow up, because she interviewed adults as well, a lot of them ended up in extremely destructive and abusive relationships, physically, sexually, mentally, emotionally, and they felt a need to stay around. And this is a huge problem because if we don't teach girls healthy ways to express themselves, you're setting people up to not be able to get out of dangerous situations later in life. Up until reading this book, I never associated me staying in abusive relationships with being bullied by other girls as a child. Now that I've read it, I've heard these other girls' stories. I always associated it with other abusive things that were done to me and said to me as a child, but it's a collective of experiences that become the pattern for later in life. And this was just one experience that I didn't think was part of it, but wow, it probably was. So those girls who told me that I was too fat to be friends with them, I tried for a little while to try and stay friends with them. But since they weren't having it, I was brutally ignored, and all I could think about was, well, I guess I have to get skinny to get back with them. There was a girl who was kind of a loner, kind of edgy, and she kind of took me under her wing when she probably saw that the popular girls they were my friends, and then she saw that suddenly they weren't my friends anymore, and she just randomly was like, come hang out with me. And I hung out with her, and she didn't care that I was fat. She didn't care about any of that. And it was like, wow. But still, early on in that friendship building, I still tried to be friends with my old friends, which is very interesting. When you're then later in life, you might be with someone who is severely abusive and you keep trying to win their affection back. And you might meet someone who, truly treats you with respect, yet you're still fighting for the disrespect. Interesting. There's this contradiction of a lot of girls who are bullied ending up in abusive relationships with men and women, but we're going to talk about men for a minute. So you end up in these abusive relationships with men, but also girls who are bullied during those formative years tend to befriend more men than women. They tend to have a larger group of guy friends than girlfriends, because the bullying amongst young girls teaches girls that you can't trust women. But then at the same time, you end up with these abusive men and you can't trust men, but you still feel safer around guys than around women. It's weird. My childhood taught me that women are manipulative, devious, and will go behind your back and talk about you behind your back. And I am not sitting here saying that I am not guilty of that behavior. I was obviously very much guilty of that. There's also a difference between just petty gossip and pettiness and straight up cruel intent bullying. I've already admitted that I believe myself to have been somewhat of a bully at times in my childhood, and God, it's embarrassing. If you didn't know, when you are under great psychological stress, it actually can cause physical side effects. And there were girls in this book having ulcers, stomach ulcers, at like the age of 13, to the point where some of them had to be hospitalized. It was so bad because the bullying was so bad. It's insane. Like there are these young girls being hospitalized for things that should not be occurring in a child. You should not be so stressed as a 13-year-old because of your friends where you're in the hospital for it. I had a lot of stomach issues as a kid. They also touched on, obviously, the major, huge side effect of bullying, and that is wanting to end one's own life. If we connect the dots, my own downfall into that area of depression can be linked back to the bullying, because it all had to do with self-image, self-worth. I don't want to dive too deep into this video, because that's just a very touchy subject. This book was fascinating because I could only listen to it in short snippets, like 40 minutes at a time, for two reasons. One, no offense, the reader of the book, her voice got on my nerves. And two, it's hard to hear your own negative life experiences read to you. I could only listen to it every few days for very short periods of time, because, wow, it's heavy to just be like, yep, that happened to me. Yep, I want to cry now. Yep, that sucked. Yep, girls are awful. But no one teaches us how not to be awful. And at the time, we don't know that we're being awful. Like, in some cases, yeah, the true bullies, no, because their intent is to be mean. Yeah, there's underlining intent, keep people in order, keep people in line, keep people around. Girls have it hard, and that's not to say that boys don't, but this book was about girls, okay? So, not forgetting that guys have it hard too. It's just this book is about girls. Definitely go check it out. Odd Girl Out, The Hidden Culture of Aggression in Girls, Rachel Simmons. Enjoy, read it, listen to it, learn something about your own childhood. Maybe guys should read it too and understand why women might be the way that they are. Anyway, thank you so much for clicking on the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. If you did not enjoy it, you can give it a thumbs down. That is cool too. I don't mind. If you are not subscribed already, please consider subscribing and be sure to hit the notification bell to stay notified of all future uploads. If you have any comments, questions, video suggestions, anything at all, feel free to leave that in the comment section below. Be sure to go follow me over on Instagram, and I will see you next time. Bye!